Hey, Carl. Oh, I'm looking at the audio, right? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm just waiting for Mike to get on, and we got another person.
Okay. I'm gonna step away for just a minute. I'll be right back.
What's going on, Keith? How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Mike?
How's everything?
Oh, everything is good. Just waiting for Carl to come back, and just waiting for one other person. But I'm glad that you was able to make it to Unheard Voices today.
Hey, no problem. Thank you for having me.
That's it, because I know you're a busy man over there.
The grind doesn't stop, man. We're in a fight. We're in a fight for this democracy. So it's not fighting. It just doesn't stop. So
Exactly. Oh, there's Mark. Can you hear me, Mark?
Hey, my apologies. I had to download Chrome. It wouldn't let me use my Internet Explorer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no worries.
So just waiting for Paul to come back in. But how's everybody doing so far? Good?
can't
So far,
complain.
so good.
All right.
I'm back. Can you see me, Keith?
Yeah, I can see you.
All right, bro.
We had a couple other people that was going to be, talking about the coronavirus, but they're not here. But what I wanted to do, I still wanted to go on and talk about the coronavirus, and especially how it's affecting, the Black people, and to hear your thoughts on what's going on. But first of all, I'm going to go around and introduce everybody. Of course, I'm Keith, right? You know who I am.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, I'm Keith. I'm residing in Maryland now, and I've been here for about 2 years now. And I started Unheard Voices back in 2004, and we're still going strong. And I provided Unheard Voices so that way we can have a voice other than the other voices that they have out there. Next, I want to talk about Carl. And Carl Jennings, he has been the director for the city of Long Branch, New Jersey, the Department of Recreation and Human Services since 1994. So he's been in the business for a long time, working with young adults and within the community. Okay, he oversees the recreational indoor and outdoor activities. His Human Services Division addresses Long Branch citizens and crises. And this is definitely a crisis we have going on here. So that's a question I want to ask you, Carl. On how are you dealing with those crises once we get into things. He also has a full staff of 3 and a part-time seasonal staff of 90 people, employees. And of course, he's a graduate of good old Long Branch High School.
Go Green Wave.
Go Green Wave, go. Okay. Next, I'm going to talk about Mark Bell. And Mark, he's the Director of Diversity and Initiatives and Recruitment. Now, Mark, he resides in Maryland, in Aberdeen, Maryland. So when I moved up to Maryland, Mark was one of the first people that I met. And we met in the gym. Because Mike, I used to be real big, right?
Why you We're gonna get you back. We're gonna get you back there. We're gonna get you back.
I was like, hey. Albert, right? But I was a big dude. And I went on I started changing my lifestyle. And that's one of the things I want to talk about also, which is affecting the Black community, the way that we eat, the way we need to do things in order to combat this virus. Mark currently serves as Director of Diversity Initiatives and Recruitment at the University of Baltimore. He holds a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and he also has a master's degree in public administration. So he's no joke over here. He's a smart dude. But last but not least, we have Michael Bland. And now Michael, he's young, okay, but he's old. Michael, you like the way I said that, right? But Michael, he's been around a lot. Let me just read some of the things that he has about himself. So Michael has served as the National Director Leaders of Color Initiative. He hails from Long Branch. Basically, Michael served as the campaign manager for Mr. Hayes in 2018 in Connecticut 5th Congressional District, making it the first African-American woman elected in all of New England Congress. So, you know, you was doing some work. You was out there. Okay. Did that running that track, did that help you out?
You know, it's funny because I'm a sprinter, but it definitely taught me. You know, I've been running marathons ever since. So you can't run a sprint in politics. It's a marathon.
There you go. Now, prior to the time while he was representing Mrs. Hayes, Michael worked as a deputy chief of staff for the Majority Conference leader in New Jersey Legislation Assembly, and the name is Shavonda Sumter. You call it DS35, and the deputy director for Congresswoman Elizabeth Esty on New Britain, Connecticut. Now, most notably, Michael contributed to the incredible success of Obama. And don't you miss President Obama?
Man, every day, trust me, I mean,
we got this joke out there. He can't talk, can't complete a complete sentence, and we have to listen to him every day, all the time. Okay. So basically, success of Obama for American campaign, where he served as the Northeast Regional Field Director in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and he conducted region-wide plans for voter registration and event organization for volunteer. Now, Michael, he's a graduate of Rhode Island University with a degree in political science. He also resides in Long Branch. His wife is Laura, and basically he's passionate. He had this early passion for politics in his early childhood, and he has twin daughters. Michael, I didn't know that.
Yeah, twin girls. Yeah,
I know they give you a run for your money, huh?
I'm paying for it all. Mr. Jennings is laughing. He already knows I'm paying for it all.
Right. How do you pronounce the name? Layla and Michaela.
Michaela.
All right. So, like I said, basically, I wanted to focus on why we, as African Americans, are facing the brunt of this crisis. And I'm going to go around and just hear some thoughts on what everybody believes. So, Michael, let's start with you. Like, what do you think is some of the things that are actually affecting us as African Americans?
I think it's a number of things, and you know, if I could just speak from a political lens, I mean, look, we're in a situation where we're already concerned who we trust and who our leadership is, and so you see that, you know, folks that we're trying to figure out if we're going to vote by mail, and we want to believe that our vote's going to be counted. And I think that's, we're in a situation again. It's, we have to worry about, folks are talking about the presidential election, but you have the congressional, you have Senate, and then in a lot of major cities, you have mayoral elections, you have school boards. So, but trusting the process on how your vote is counted, I think is one of the biggest pieces we're seeing is one. And I think particularly with Black and brown folk, and we say this a lot, we've survived slavery, we've survived Jim Crow, we survived this and we survived that. But I think, that's the problem. We've never learned how to live. We've just always learned how to survive. And so we're at that point again where our leadership is on trial. And so I think that the difficulty is just trying to have leadership or trying to find leadership that we trust and getting the right information. I mean, it's so much information out there, but it's a lot of misinformation. And so it's one of these things is like, where do we go from here, right? What is the new norm? What is normalcy in COVID? And I think for us, it's, we've always known there were disparities, but I think if you now can't see the disparities in the Black and brown communities, the food deserts, the access to healthcare, the access to work, the access to, or you're seeing like the lower wage jobs, we're the ones on the front lines, Black and brown folks, we're the ones on whether we're nurses, whether we're at the grocery store with grocery store clerks, we're the ones on the front lines during COVID. So I think now more than ever, if you're not listening, if you're not seeing the disparities, you either don't want to listen or you're blind. News every day. And I remember when this thing started, we used to, I don't want to say joke, but we used to think that Black folk couldn't get it, right? I mean, when it started like, no, Black people can't get it. No, we're good. And long and behold.
Well, that was one of the things, I don't know, Carl and Mark, have you, you was listening to, we as Black folks, we strong Black men, we can't get that. It's only for, other people. And, people were actually outside, playing basketball, doing all those regular things because they really did think that it didn't affect them. But I wanted to get to Carl because I know that you handle a lot of kids through the recreational program. Through this crisis, how are you dealing with teaching the kids and, because it's a whole new norm now. So what are some of the things that you're doing to help the kids out through this process?
It's a shame because unfortunately there's not too much we can do. We had to close all, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We had to close our parks. We had to close our gymnasiums. We had to close our community centers. So our kids are somewhat homebound now, and the only thing they can really do recreationally, which a lot of them we're doing anyway, is on their various games. Yeah. And I talked to a few of my granddaughter, and they might go jogging, or at one point they were afraid to do that. So as far as activities for the youth, it's not just with my area, it's nationwide. It's very limited for what youth can do right now. I also see another problem for, you were talking about us not having, us as Black people not getting the virus. When I first looked at the statistics, in Africa, like the first weeks I saw where you saw very little of this affecting the continent of Africa. I did
the same thing. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Also some of our southern states, and then all of a sudden, bam, it hit everywhere. And I attribute that because you realize if you look at some of the areas in the South, if you look at some of the areas in suburban America, it doesn't hit them as much as it does the cities. And that's because of the closeness that we live. I mean, you live in New York City or even Newark, and you're living in a 28, 30, story building, and you can't go anywhere. And the closeness is what's really affecting a lot of the minorities.
That's true. Now I want to get Mark involved here. Now, Mark, we kind of country out here. You know, you gotta. Well, I mean, you gotta have a car. Now, if you don't have a car living in Maryland, I mean, it's rough. I mean, just you know how in Long Branch, if you want to go across the street to go to the store, you can go across the street to go to the store. But if you're going to try to go across the street to go to the store here, I said that's when I'm going to need your track shoes, Mike, because it's going to be about what a good 5 miles, Mark.
Wow.
Yeah, about.
Yeah. Now I know, Mark, you're dealing with a lot of the in your work. You deal. I'm interested in the diversity, okay, and how people are getting along during this crisis. Do you feel like being the head of diversity or the students understanding the importance of working together and they're not looking at it as being a black disease, white disease. Right. You understand what I'm saying?
I do. So for my job is that I recruit for the law school, and that's a different population than undergrad. But I also teach at the undergraduate level at University of Baltimore and Cecil College. So I'm seeing actually 2 different responses from people of color at different levels. In the law school matters because rank matters in law school. Your GPA matters. Where you graduate in law school really will predict what kind of money you're going to make once you go out into the workforce. Right. Undergrad, not so much, right? As long as you get your undergrad degree, the first job may ask you about your GPA, but the second job, nobody cares. Once you have your degree, it doesn't really matter. But from the law school side of it, it's more impactful. So, so you're starting to see, let me say this. Let me back up a little bit, because I think, both Michael and Carl both said, something about the systematic racism. And I think all COVID-19 has really done is once again, just really pulled that blanket back. It really pulled that curtain back. And you're starting to see how systematic racism has really damaged us, right? I mean, how it's really structured our opportunities, right? Our opportunities in education, in job, healthcare services, diet, right? Michael touched on some of this stuff, but you're starting to see that. And so, the lack of education, I work with some of the Baltimore City schools. Some of the schools are fine, but, I'd honestly say 70% of Baltimore City schools are just a wreck. They're an absolute wreck. And, I go in and I work with these kids and you see like, there's almost no hope for them. Right. And so you come out of those schools, you come into a system of Baltimore City where there's no jobs, there's no more manufacturing jobs. They're ill-equipped to come out for the workforce. They're ill-equipped to go to college. So what do? And so they hang on the corners. They hang on the corners with no masks on. Right. So you're starting to see these issues of structural racism that's really starting to, again, it's always been there, but once things like this come along and it pulls that curtain back, you really understand how it starts to impact our community.
Now, do you even thinking back, when you were younger, do you feel that institutionalized racism starts, when you're an adolescent? Because I can remember a situation when I was, growing up, and I'll never forget this. You kids, and we looking for some kickball. Everybody playing kickball. So a couple of my friends said, "Come on, let's go on top of the roof. I know there's some balls on top of the roof." And so here I was the scary one. I said, "No, I ain't going on top of the roof." I said, "Because the po-po might come." So they said, "Oh no, the police is not going to come." So all of a sudden, I made my first step to go on top of the roof. And all of a sudden I heard, and I said, "Oh, son," right? I said, and then I started howling at the other cats. I said, "I told you they was going to get us." And what they did, when I said that they plant things in your mind, because I know it planted in my mind. I said that police officer had 2 choices. He could have talked to us and said, "You better not go on top of those roofs because you're not supposed to be over there." Or he could have took us down to the station. You know what he did. He took us down to the station. So he was showing us right there the form of racism. Because if it was any other kid, he would have just let him scoot and let him go. So that always stayed in my mind. So so when
It hasn't changed though, Keith.
it
hasn't changed.
No, it hasn't.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just saying it hasn't changed. Because we just saw in Michigan, we saw a band of white men militia group with bulletproof vests and automatic weapon storm the Capitol building.
Exactly.
Could you imagine had that been black men?
Right.
Had that been a gang of black, first of all, it wouldn't have been a group. It would have been a gang of black men raided that building. And there were no incidents. Now, to the militia's credit, there was no violence. They didn't push back or anything like that, to their credit. But had that been black men, I guarantee you they would have been provoked by the police.
Exactly.
So you're starting to see the racism on all levels. So
it just happened in Texas with the black jogger.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's very disturbing. Because that was that Georgia. Georgia, you mean, right?
Georgia, yes, Georgia. Yeah. Excuse me. Yes, Georgia.
And that was very disturbing because it brought back some bad memories for me. Being at Carl, I know you went to Rutgers also, and I was at Rutgers, and I wasn't no track star or anything like that. I was just jogging just to stay in shape.
How do you think Mike got to be as good as he was? My tutelage.
Right. And I could
be in the backyard. You're right.
And I can remember, running on campus, and it's predominantly white. And I remember running on the campus, which was the Bush campus, where the football stadium is located.
Correct.
And as I'm running, the white boys try to run me over. I said, boy, I said to myself, because you're running, and out the corner of your eye, you got to watch them. And that's no place to be going to school where you have, school is hard enough, and then you have to deal with that too. So the racism is learned very early for white people, and they know how to push our buttons. And they've been doing it for hundreds and hundreds of years. But going back, like you say, to the Georgia, the young man, he was jogging, right? And the next thing you know, you had these two hillbilly racist whites just come out and shoot him down. Now, and I know, if it was somebody of color, look, they would have got us, they would have dragged us, they would have did everything pop. Look, there wouldn't have been no justice, just like all the other times when things happen, because they always take justice in their own hand. There's, like Dr. King says, he says, unjust laws are no laws at all. So basically, we have to deal with these unjust laws that are prevalent when Dr. King was alive, before Dr. King, and it's so sad that we have to still deal with it today. And so that really hurt me. And I was just looking online, and somebody had posted something about to the two white guys that had did this to the black kid, and said, I know where you are, and we're going to get you. But he took it down, for his safety probably. But it kind of makes you, you got to think, because I know a lot of white people here in Maryland. Maryland, I think they love to carry guns, huh, Mark? Here in Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they.
I think so. I think so. I agree.
Yeah, so I find it like it's different from New Jersey. Although
is Maryland a carry state?
Mark, you want to answer that?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay.
Yeah, but
I think to Mark's point, you said it's funny because I said that you said, could you imagine? No, I can't imagine. It's brother rolling up to the Capitol with guns and protesting, right? Because they would have been thugs or a gang or militia. But I think even to that point, it's become exhausting. As a black male, it's become exhausting because I think even me, I've had an inflection point where you said you've done it. I've done this whole body of working with politicians, and like at some point you say to yourself, well, who the hell is speaking up for me? And I think we say we worry, or there's a different sense or a different heightened sense of security being an African American male in America. I think that's the truth, and it's something we don't talk about enough at all. And so I say a lot of times when folks say that the system doesn't work for them or the process doesn't work for them, and it's even now. A brother was, he probably was just trying to get out the house, and he gets shot down. But the other point I want to make, I think, is interesting. I said I'd be willing to see, everybody's kicking and screaming. I want to get out the house. I'm tired of being in the house. But I want to see all these people who are protesting. I want to see if these are people who have jobs, right? If these people have regular 9-to-5s, if they're still getting paid and just inciting a riot. But I think in addition to that, I think you have to look at black and brown folk where, we'd love to be home, right? We're worried about, our budget, right? And so as much as folks say, oh, we want to go back to work, we don't like, if we don't work, we don't live. And exactly. The point where I said in the beginning of the conversation, as black folk, we've always learned how to survive. We don't know how to live. We know how to survive, live and enjoy. But I mean, I can only imagine what. I know, Mr. Jennings, you're probably going to deal with this sooner rather than later, and Mr. Bell, you got the same thing. I mean, these budgets. What I'm worried about are these fiscal budgets that come after this, and how are we going to support? We're talking about the disparities now, and I see hundreds of panels going on virtually around the country. But my thing is, how are we going to hold our electeds, at the very least, locally accountable after COVID, in the school system, in various departments? And are we going to see hiring freezes? Are we going to see people cut? Who are going to be the first ones fired? And I think we need to start paying attention to that. And then also having those conversations, because, it's usually what the first hired, first fired. So, if you look at the school system, who's first? Are they going to be the instructional aides? Are they going to be the librarians? Are they going to be custodians? And who are those folks? They're black and brown folks. So I think I'm really worried about the aftermath of COVID and what, how are we preparing or being proactive, now and preparing for that now. Folks, I don't want to wait till live in the land of about to do, because folks are working on the plan now, but how are we going to hold our folks accountable? In the future is one of the things I'm really worried about or concerned, or even folks are talking about, even now with folks in elected office.
Mike, you make two good points. And, the first, you're right. It's where, who are they going to get rid of in those school systems, right? But even if you take that down just one step even deeper, what school systems are they going to hit first, right? They're going to hit the school systems of color first. That's where we're going to take that money from. And so, before the schools in the county get hit, they're going to strip both of them. They're going to strip the city schools first, right? And the second thing you mentioned, which I did want to touch on, is you were saying, I wonder how many of these folks out here inciting these riots have a 9-to-5, getting paid, and they're just out there to be out there. And I was thinking about this, and I was talking to one of my buddies about this, and I said, right, and we just saw the situation in Georgia, right? Trayvon Martin was the same thing. They were somewhere someone deemed them they shouldn't be, right? And so for 6 weeks, white folks have been told you can't go somewhere, and it is driving them insane, angry. So we have been told for centuries where you can, even if you belong there, even if you drive a car that you pay for, you shouldn't be driving that car. You live in a neighborhood someone thinks you shouldn't be living in. You got to answer for that. You're jogging on a trail they think you shouldn't be jogging on. You got to answer for that. And so we've always kind of been, 1 foot in the pool, 1 foot out. We've always been kind of like, I want to go for a run, but do I really want to run down this trail? Exactly. And if there's a white woman coming and I have to pass her, like, that's uncomfortable. I don't want to be in that situation, right? So I think we're seeing these situations where this is something, Mike said, we've survived these things. It almost becomes a part of, we understand, like there's a whole litany of unwritten rules we have to abide by. And white folk don't. And so for the first time,
for a second,
you can't go somewhere, and they're saying, what do you mean I can't go somewhere? What do you mean I can't walk out of this door? What do you mean I have to wear a mask? When we walk in, we have to take our masks off, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're told all the time you couldn't be in this neighborhood. What are you doing? You look suspicious. And so, you're really starting to see, like, they've lived in our shoes for 6 weeks. We've lived it for
Every day.
And so, and you see just how quickly the frustration kicks in, but we do it every day. We do it every day. So.
That's so true. In the I think you was mentioning, the process of the social distancing. Okay, they have spring break. They have all those things that go on during that time in school, and white folks can't deal with it. They want to go and they want to gather together. They don't feel that the social distance shouldn't apply to them. And then lately, I was reading how they're treating black people with social distances differently than white people. You have white people that might be gathering a little bit. They're okay. But black people, they social distancing, and they got the paddy wagon waiting for them. So what's going on there? That even there you're getting injustice, even when you're trying to social distance. So it's like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
But I think this. I'm sorry, Keith. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Get ahead, Mark.
I'm saying I think this really shows, the importance of implicit bias training, right? So I do some consulting work, and that's some of the training that I do. But implicit, so when I was building my first presentation, I was, I'm always doing research on these things, and I read this one study that you were able to tell the race of the driver from the audio only. Mm-hmm. Think about that. So police interaction with the driver, you could tell the race of the driver by how the cop spoke to him within the first minute, right? So if it was a white person, the cop would walk up to him and say, hey, good morning, sir. Let me tell you why I pulled you over, blah, 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 blah. And when it was a black guy, the approach was completely different, right? Why is that? Like, why is that so different? And I think because you're already seen as like, I have to, when white people are stopped by the police, it's law, right? It's law, it's justice, it's whatever. When black folks are stopped by the police, it's about control. And that's what it is. And it starts from that. And so even from that first interaction, that language is like, I need to make sure you understand I am over you. And you're going to do everything I tell you to do. And so it's already an aggressive interaction from the word go. And so I think this COVID-19, as far as from the police side of it, this really shows the importance of implicit bias training.
Mm-hmm. And it's so it's wild because, like you said, they're trying to show control. Because I know, like when you encounter police, through my experience, they're not nice at all. You haven't done anything wrong yet, but yet it's still they're mean to you. So how can you be protecting, the people in your community, and you're being mean to them? I mean, you're showing videos where you have the police throwing a pregnant woman on the floor, on the ground, and white folks feel that it's okay. And then I'm trying to say, I want to see the video where the black policeman throws the white one on the ground. So I'm thinking like this. I feel like some of the police officers that we have on the force that are of color, I know they only could do for so much, but they need to start showing harsh realities to these white folks so they will understand what's going on. Because a lot of the people, they will not understand because it's not happening to them.
That's right.
So when it happens to them, then they know firsthand. It's just like with the O.J. Simpson case. I mean, personally, did I think he was guilty? Sure, he probably was guilty. But if it didn't fit, you had to acquit. All my colleagues on the job, I walked in, I'm working as a computer scientist for the federal government, and everybody's mad. You know, everybody. And I'm walking around with a big smile on my face. You know, I go to my white friend's room, and I say to him, I said, "You mad, ain't you?" I said, "You mad?" He said, "Yeah, I'm mad." Then know what I said to him? I said, "Now you know what it feels like, what we've been going through for years and years and years." I said, "It took this case in order for your white people to understand." I said, "If this never happened, you would never know the feeling." And I said, "Doesn't feel too great, does it?" He looks at me and said, "No." I said, "Well, this is the reality of what we've been going through for years." So
I'd like to bring up another issue that's COVID's really going to affect, and that's housing. As Mike knows and Keith knows, I sit on the board of our local housing authority, and we're already starting to get calls from the congressman and the senator about housing for people that have been displaced already because of the virus. And unfortunately, public housing is no longer a emergency housing source where someone that might lose their home can come to Long Branch or wherever housing authority it may be.
right.
And this is going to be across the board, across the nation. And once this is finally to a new normal that we're going to be seeing, housing is going to be even more of a problem than it is now. And it's a major problem now. And I don't know what our elected officials are going to do about it, but what we as Black people need to do is put pressure on our elected officials, or the people that are seeking office in November, to do something about housing, because money's getting cut and people are losing the roof over their heads.
That's right.
Yeah, I think those are so, that's one of the conversations that we're not talking about. And again, I'm part of the space that I'm in works in policy, ed reform policy, and we live in New Jersey. We have the best public school system in the country, I believe, right? We're number one. We could brag a little bit about that.
Yeah, we do. We're ahead of Maryland, Mark. Mark.
I think everything had Maryland.
No, we're ahead of Maryland. New Jersey's ahead of Maryland.
That's right, number one in the country. And I think that I've had the opportunity to travel to a ton of different places, and I think about one of the places where we have our charter. It's like a charter chapter where we're recruiting Black and brown folk to run for office down ballot, training them, supporting them. And one of the hot spots where in our charter spot is Memphis, and just think that only 8% of African American kids are proficient. And so in that, I believe only 43% of the city has access to Wi-Fi, broadband. So then you look at, could you only imagine what that means in rural Tennessee, right? And so rural places where Black and brown folks are at. And so we love this thing called technology, but the digital divide is another area where we're seeing huge disparities in Black communities. And you're saying, what's the answer? I'm worried about, we're like, well, folks have got to pay rent for this month or that month, and all of a sudden, because their parents are working, but all of a sudden we think, or the governments or the banks think, well, they're going to have 3 months of rent stacked up. Well, what happens when mom and dad are out of work and they're going to the food banks, and they're trying to figure out how they're paying their bills? I mean, this is stuff like we're seeing this stuff, and it's emotional in our community because we're looking at, and again, I think I'm big on and I pound the table on why representation matters. Because how can you have somebody represent you if they don't know what the struggle looks like, right? If they don't know, they don't understand the disparities. And I think that's one of the biggest things that hits home to me. And I even like to, I'm an advocate for breaking cities up into wards, right? Wards should be representation. You can't have, don't have somebody who lives in North Long Branch speak for somebody that lives in Central Long Branch, but they don't understand, right? Like we're all Long Branch, but there are different communities, or just like, don't have somebody speak for somebody who lives on the east side of Tennessee when you're west side of Tennessee. Those are
the same way with policing.
But
how can you have somebody that don't live in that community police that community. I mean, back when I was younger, the policeman lived in the community. I mean, you was able to say hi to the policeman. He wasn't looked at as a monster. I mean, he was really a public servant.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the policeman today. I mean, unless you force them to say hi, and most of the time when I walk past one, I force them to say hi. You know, otherwise they will not open up their mouths.
Yeah.
And I think it's totally crazy. And then another issue you have brought up is the technology issue. You know, we're all educated here, and we know that we need technology in order to succeed. And we are so far behind technology, and it's crazy because I can remember even going for my advanced degrees, I can be the only person of color sitting in a computer science class. And I said to myself, I know we have to have more than me. I said to myself, maybe I should have went to school in the South. Then I probably would have seen more. But up north, man, I was the only one. I can remember saying to a teacher, because I had to fight my way through. I told that teacher one day, I said, I got to my last class. I said, nobody better not mess me up now. That man looked at me and said, ain't nobody gonna mess you up, Cole. But I was basically telling them, I know what time it is. I know you got the upper hand on me, but I don't want you to mess me up. And kids need to learn early. Fight for your grade. You got mainly these white teachers. They want to give you what they want to give you. No, you let them know right off the bat, especially coming from schools like these all black schools like Rutgers and Princeton or any other white schools that's made. If you don't let them know, you starting from an F, and then you working your way up.
That's right.
But otherwise, so what I used to do, I'll sit this big head right in front of the class, make sure she or he can't miss it, and let them know. I don't know, I must have frightened one of the teachers. Right after the class, I said, look, I ain't here to get no C, D, or F. And I had my mean look on. I said, you better tell me what I need to do in order to get the A or B. When I finished that class, I got that A. Okay. But you got to do that. We have to do that. And then,
hey, Keith, could I just interject something? Speaking of schooling, Mark, you don't know, but both Keith and Michael know I run a college tour to historic colleges, HBC. Mike, didn't you go one year?
Yep. I think I was a junior.
Okay. Yep. Our HBCUs are going to be hurting after this coronavirus is over.
oh, yes,
Yeah. They're going to be hurting. And I hate to see some doors closed, but I really feel that some of these smaller schools with small enrollments, their doors might be closing. Some are in financial trouble as we speak, but with this virus coming, it's really going to affect. It's affecting the larger schools and schools with no endowment or very little endowment. Such HBCUs are going to be very heavily affected by this virus. And I hate to see it coming, but I think it will be coming.
Carl, it's funny you say that because, halfway through our semester, so we ended, I think, on March 10th. They said no more classes, everything's going to go online. But the college level, and we found like a lot of our students didn't have laptops, right? And these are law school students. It's not just undergrad and grad. These are law school students, right? And so where you made it to law school, you absolutely have a laptop. Many of them didn't. And so what they decided to do was say, hey, look, moving forward, you have to have a laptop before you start law school. You're already putting another barrier in the way. right?
Exactly.
We're already putting another barrier in the way. And that's what I mean about these, many of these policies that happen, right? In our quest for this all-inclusive world, I think sometimes we put these policies, you got to understand, like, we're not all starting from the same starting line. That's not how it works, right? And so you put this thing in that, well, everyone needs to have a laptop. Well, maybe I don't have $1,200 to go drop on a new laptop to start law school, right? Because, my mom lost her job, my dad lost a job. I'm a server now because until, black folks are going to be, we're going to be more likely to get sick, right? We're going to be more likely to be financially impacted by this. And most importantly, it's going to take us longer to recover, right? And that's the thing. Like, it's not like, oh, the economy's going to open up in fall and we're just going to get back to work. Like, nah, it's going to take longer for us to recover. Why? Because we lost our house, right? We lost our place to live. So now we've been homeless for 4 or 5 months before we can, to Carl's point, we've been homeless for 4 or 5 months. So now we're starting almost from the red, like everything else. And so when the economy kicks back up, we're not in the green anymore, right? We're back in the red again. And now we got to work 5-10 years to get back up to where we were when COVID-19 hit. And so, again, as we said very early on, you're really starting to understand and see, systematic racism and racist policies and the damage that they do. We get along in life. We see our black president. We see black folks in good places, and we get to put on our suit and ties, and it looks good. But when you really stop and understand poverty and these policies are really, really impacting us, like, this should wake you up. If you're not woke yet, this should wake you up. There's so much
right. Because I know, Michael, being out there in the political world, do you see a lot of racism that goes on? Because I know a lot of times, everybody's politicking, to be in a certain place and to meet certain people, and what's your experience with that?
I mean, it's been a wonderful experience. It's really been a blessed experience, and I think everybody who's helped me along the way, and one way or another, I had to again write my own path, but I think it doesn't change. You really think it changes, and it doesn't. The one thing I'll tell you that I learned: we are our biggest enemy. I've been to the Baltimore. I ran a mayoral race in Baltimore. I ran a mayoral race in Hartford, right? So two really big black and brown communities, and you see the infight, and I'm like, we could have figured this out a long time ago, right? But the infight that goes on is atrocious, and I mean, so it doesn't matter if you're a city of 30,000 or 650,000, and so you wonder why in cities that are majority black, still having a white mayor or a white congressman. Now, that's a horrible thing, but again, if you really want somebody to fight for your issues, they need to at least come from where you come from. And so I think that's been really hard. I think the other part politically that you think about is when I have a hard time when people of color donate to presidential campaigns. And I think we have to empower the Mayor Keisha Bottoms of the world, the mayor of Atlanta.
Right.
And I can go on a list of African American mayors and Latino mayors that we don't support. I think that's where we need to put our investment first, right? Behind our elected officials. We're so quick to give to a presidential candidate, but we don't give the council folks. We don't give the folks running for school board. We don't give the folks running for, another place's county commission or freeholder that look like us. But then we're looking, we're sitting here looking on the return on our investment in public officials who we think have our best interests at hand and don't. So could you imagine what that looks like now when folks really I know a young lady who's running for office in Memphis. She's a hairdresser.
Right.
Her hair studio's gone, but she's still running for office. And, she didn't have much to begin with. So can you imagine now? She's like, okay, not only do I got to find a way to pay my bills, I got to find a way to continue to run for office. And so, small dollar donations will go so much longer if we keep them in our community that way, I think, politically. But, I mean, the systemic racism, I mean, you look at the report that was done, I think, Mr. John, I think you may have said this to me back. I think it was 16. I think I was still with Congresswoman Esty. So it may have been 14, where only 1% of the chief of staffs in D.C. were African American. Now think about and so you talk about how can we maneuver or get ourselves at the table. And I'm like, the days of asking for permission have to be over. You got to bring your own chair. And I think for the longest time, it's like, oh, you got to wait. And there's something to that, waiting your time and getting some seasoned knowledge. But, if I'm going to wait, who else is going to be passing me, right? When their moms or their dads or their aunties or uncles are bringing them in that room, but I've been told to wait for so long. So, you look at like the chiefs of staffs. And I think when you look at people who represent you, look at the people they've put around them, right? Like, look at the people they've hired. They're not from your community. And a lot of times I say, if they don't look like you, then again, they're not arriving at that table where they're making decisions with your best interest at hand. So I think, politics has to look different. I think moving forward for us, I wish we really can be more forceful in our local elections. I think we're only worried about presidential elections as if they have the major impact that we think it does. And I think the real change we need to see starts with our local municipalities and school boards. So I think, you talk about systemic racism. It's hard, particularly when, we live, I'll take us for example. We live in a city where a lot of times we're like, oh, only one African American get elected to the city council.
Right.
Y'all lived here longer than me. If y'all been, look, hold on. Y'all both are all the way older than me to know. I don't know if I've ever seen more than 2 African Americans serve on the city council in Long Branch, but it's crazy. I always say only one can serve on the city council. But I think, Mr. Jones, we have 5 African Americans on the school board, but we can only have one for the city council, which blows my mind. So I just think our thinking has to change, and we collectively need to start working together more. We have to.
Well, I want to mention, I'm going to hold the NAACP thought in my mind. But, going to the, like the council meetings. So I decided, since I was working in the area with Unheard Voices, I decided to started doing the council meetings, reporting on it. So I go to the council meeting, and all of a sudden, the issue had came up, and the mayor at that time, oh my God, what's the black guy's name? Grant, Avery Grant. He's talking, and he makes this little statement, because he's saying how he was treated better, by the the KKK back in the 50s. Then I'm getting better treatment than in the council meeting. And I mean, if you look at what was going on, he was getting he wasn't able to get his point across. They were shutting him down. So basically, he was saying he wasn't shut down back then. He was still able to make his point, and they totally shut him down. But what was so ironic about the whole thing was that the mayor came out of his face, and I said to myself, all I saw was can you hear, Mike? Okay, all I saw was the mayor wearing a hood. Now I captured him, okay? And I reported the story, and next thing you know, the story started circulating. And then every time I would see the mayor, he looked at me like he saw a ghost. I said, that's right. I'm around town, and I'm going to be coming to more of the meetings. And I'm going to capture you more. But going back to the NAACP, now, Mark, I don't know how the NAACP works in Maryland area, but I know we do have a local NAACP. And I know a lot of things have been going on in the community. It was like some of the deaths that were going on, the fighting and so on. And I had interviewed a couple people, and the people were really upset with the NAACP. So I want to know everybody's thought. What do you think the role of the NAACP is supposed to be? For me, I feel like if you're supposed to be the NAACP, you need to be out there being the NAACP, taking care of business when things ain't right. You're supposed to try to make it right. Now, if you're sitting back just for a political reason, because you want a seat over there and don't want to make nobody mad over there, why are you the NAACP head person? So a lot of people were seeing this. And as an outsider, when I came in, I saw perfectly what the people were talking about. So I'd like to know from each individual, what are your thoughts on what an NAACP should be and how they should react to certain situations when it comes to racial issues or, things that Black folks need in the community, but it's brushed to the side because they make sure that Andy May or Susie get what she wants, but Jamal can't get what he wants. So what are your thoughts on the NAACP? Anybody?
I can only speak locally because I haven't really been involved with any other NAACPs other than in my hometown. With the present president of the NAACP, when he first took office, he's also a councilman now, but prior to him being a councilman, he was just president of the NAACP. And he took the position and started and just ran with it. Unfortunately, what a lot of people do, and I hate to admit it, but it's the truth, they hit him with a lot of falsehoods. And he was representing a lot of people not getting the full facts. And unfortunately, it happens quite a bit, and it still happens. A lot of people do not give the person who's going to be representing them the truth.
Right.
And they'll go to a various political meeting, whether it's a council meeting or a board meeting of the county with not the correct facts. He has since realized his error of his ways, and you have to vet each individual or group that comes to you with a certain problem.
Right.
I think NAACP has always been for the betterment of our people, and I think it'll continue to be that way. But our people have to be upright and truthful if there is a problem or a situation. That's just what I've seen with my eyes.
Right.
And that's what I got to say about that.
Well, I had an experience with the NAACP. Basically, I just didn't feel that they were strong enough. Not that they were weak, but they wasn't strong enough to handle the issue at hand. It was more like, I just keep it like that. It just wasn't strong enough.
They also need the support of the Black community too, because if you look at the NAACP, a lot of times it's the same people in the same positions for numerous amount of years.
Yes, right.
Our young people have got to step up.
Exactly.
But that like I said, that's all I have to say about that.
No, I agree. Let me say I agree. Because it's so fun. I think a lot of times,
besides the NAACP and their role, how they're playing the role within the environment. What are they doing to combat that? To stay on COVID-19. What are they doing to help combat that issue?
Yeah, I think for me, I can agree with Mr. Jens on this, that we, I think Gen Z millennials get mixed up or get thrown in the same basket a lot, but we're two separate entities. I think Gen Z, I like to call them Twitter activists. They are. You want to get behind Twitter, I'm going to get behind Facebook, and I'm going to solve my problem, but I'm actually not going to go find a solution for it. And that happened, but I think the one thing I'm appreciative of a Bernie Sanders candidate, I think that's helped them kind of bring that turn that activism into, or that action into activism. They can't be upset that he's not the nominee. It's just the way it is right now. He's not the nominee. But I do agree. I think there needs to be a euthanism or more of a euthanism movement in traditional organizations, the NAACP, the Urban League, leagues, fraternities, sororities. You can listen. the same issues that the NACP has are the same issues that all Black organizations have around the country. I mean, how do we create a space for young people as well? And I think that's the one place I would say think as much as young people need to get involved, but I think that space needs to be created. But at the same time, it just needs to be initiative on young folks. So I think, for us locally, I have not been active. I've worked a lot with Scott X. Esdale, who sits on the national board as the Connecticut state president there. Great guy. Mm-hmm. And so I was just amazed how different NACPs operated in Connecticut, where I'm thinking, oh, there's a bunch of white people, but you got Waterbury, Bridgeport, Hartford, right? And you look at the titans that they had running their NACP organizations. And then, our NACP organization, I mean, you have great people running our organization as well. But I think I would argue that sometimes, I think our NACP could be more aggressive. But again, I think a lot of times in our community, we only give half the story, and then we're looking for help. Nah, give us the whole story so we know what we're fighting for, but we also know what we're protecting as well, right? So it's like, give us the story.
Like,
honest crowd.
For example, we got the COVID thing going on, right? Maybe not only the NAACP, but other organizations, like we as the people, we don't tend to go to the doctors. We don't tend to go to the hospitals. Or we can fix this problem ourselves. Various organizations getting involved in trying to change that so that our people won't get the brunt of this disease.
I think we gotta. I'll say this and I'll bounce off to somebody. I think the biggest thing is for us, and I challenge this with like every organization. You probably see this. You gentlemen probably see this the most. I think when we talk about these topics, we talk in an echo chamber. Right, like we're talking to the same people. I say this all the time, in particularly education or education reform. I'm like, y'all want to solve the problem of education reform. Y'all are talking education reform. They're not talking to any other kind of subject matter experts. But that goes to any issues. Like, oh, we want to change the community, but we're talking to the same 5 people. So I think that when we learn how to collaborate, and this is something we're still working through 400 plus years, is trying to find a pathway to work together. So because these issues, we're going to have to, like you said, Mr. Jennings, you got the, housing and education, all these things are going to be heightened crises in the Black community. So if we're not sitting at the table thinking of a solution now, we're in real trouble. We thought we were in trouble before, or what we think we see on TV is a lot. Coming out of this, we need to have conversations. Where are the federal budgets, where are the state budgets, where are the county budgets, where are the local budgets, where do we fix things, and how are people impacted? But we're not even having those conversations right now, or we're not even at the table. So,
well, on our last note, I wanted to what do we do as a people? Okay, because I noticed that everybody knows how to stick together. Chinese people can stick together, okay, or the Asian people, the Italian people, the white, the people stick together. Everybody wants to stick together except for the Blacks. How do you get us to stick together like everybody else? How do we do it? This is something been going on for hundreds of years. We rather be under, as they would say, we rather be under master, helping master, do his work instead of doing our own work. So how do we change that attitude, Mark?
Well, I think it starts with one. I mean, we have to instill some level of self-confidence as us as a race, which we don't have, right? I mean, that's been stripped away from us for centuries and centuries and centuries and to this day. So first, we say Black Lives Matter, but do they matter to us, right? And we're very quick, to step away from even how we look at poverty, right? We adopt this notion that you just didn't work hard enough, right? Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. No, I came from Pittsburgh. I grew up in a blue-collar town. A mother and a father. My dad worked in the steel mill. He was able to make enough money where he could work. My mom could stay at home and have 9 kids.
Right.
You're finding that today, right? You can't find that today. So poverty is different than it was then. And so, I think we got to have some level of compassion and empathy and understanding, right? we will forgive any other race that does anything to us. We will forgive them. We will not forgive ourselves or our own people,
Exactly.
right? And so I think we need to take a step back and do that. Show some level of compassion for people who look like us, you
Mhm.
know, and you know, and not not cast them aside. But also, I think we need to start with the youth. The youth is the key, right? And that's and that's why I love my work with the Baltimore City schools because I remember, just a quick story. I remember I was at work one day, and I wear a suit and tie, and I'm walking down a hallway, and kids would come through our building trick or treating, and
Mhm.
this little black boy came by, and he looked. He said, "Are you the president?" Right?
Mhm.
Because he just doesn't see black men in suits and ties. That's
Exactly.
ridiculous. That is ridiculous, man. So,
Right.
having those opportunities to get in front of those kids early so they see something different, not hoodies. And I'm not bashing hoodies. I wear them. I love them, right? But
Mhm.
that's all they see. They see hoodies and Tims. They got
Mhm.
to start seeing wingtips and ties as well, so they understand there's a different option. So how do we get people together? I think one, first, we got to start looking down our nose at people that don't look like us. Or not
Exactly.
the same financial bubble as us. They don't have the same educational level as us, right? We can't
Mhm.
talk down to people. We can't do that stuff, and we got to start really investing in the young and showing them different pathways as well.
Carl, you have anything you want to add to that?
I just have to ditto what Mark said. The youth are that's the key. We just have to. You'll have other ethnic groups that work with their youth and teach them finances and how to maneuver around politics. We don't do that. We have to start training our youth in whatever way we can. Education is key. That's the reason it's a little thing, but it's something that helps as far as the college tour. Take them on that. So, because a lot of our kids, they don't see other kids that look like them in a educational scenario.
Mhm.
And I think it's key, and it's opened up it's opened some eyes as far as our youth getting educated. And like as I tell the parents when I do have the meetings for the college tour, it'd be great if the youth can go to a HBCU, but the
Mhm.
bottom line is I want them to get educated on the tour about what college has to offer. And education means everything. No, everyone doesn't have to go to college, but
Mhm.
get the idea in your head that you need to do something, whether it's a trade or whatever the case may be, to better yourself after high school.
And real quick, Mike, Mike touched on something I think is very important as well, that understanding that college process, right? And I think that's a big hurdle. Like when I graduated from high school, I had 8 brothers and sisters. No one had gone to college.
Mhm.
So I applied to University of Pittsburgh with no SAT. I just said, oh, send in your application. We'll see what happens, right? Obviously,
Mhm.
I got declined, but
Mhm.
I didn't understand that. But now I've been working in higher education now for 20 plus years. I
Mhm.
fully understand the process. I have a 13-year-old son. So I'm
Mhm.
fully understand like, hey, these are the skill sets you need. You need to understand how to take a standardized test. You need to
Mhm.
understand why your GPA matters. You need to understand how to
Exactly.
advocate for your grade. As Keith was saying earlier, you need to understand and go and fight for your grade, right? I'm not always going to be here to do it. I'm not going to do it in college. So you need to learn how to advocate for yourself. And so it's all these skill sets that I didn't know as a first generation college person. I had no idea how to apply. You know, back to that distrust of the government and black folks, my
Mhm.
parents were like, you need my W-2s for financial aid. That ain't happening, right?
Mhm. Right.
So I couldn't get financial aid. I had to work and pay for that. And so, these kind of myths and things in our community around education, we got to look at. And two, and I'll say this really, really quickly, we got to involve the parents as well. One of the things I noticed working with Baltimore City schools is that the literacy rate in those adults, right,
Mhm.
they can't read. A lot of the Baltimore City residents are illiterate. And
Mhm.
so they don't understand financial aid. They don't understand, it's distrusting. And so again, I have to, not in a patronizing way. I'm not going to talk down to them like, yo, how y'all doing? Like that's not how I speak. And I'm not going to patronize them by speaking that way. But you do have to understand like where they're coming from at that level. And so, I invest. And when I go to college, when I'm talking to the high school kids about college, I'm also talking to the adults. Like, where are you in your education? Did you graduate?
Exactly.
Well, you know, Baltimore City Community College, they have an awesome GED program. Did you think about going back for this? That's how you can finance it. So, you know, I'm approaching it from both levels, the kids and the parents. And if they're doing it together, greater chance for success. So,
and then I think also the maybe people will look at us differently. Maybe we won't face so much racism once we start coming together as a group, and they see us doing things together. You know, I think that maybe the racism. What you feel about that, Mike? Don't you think that that will lessen the racism?
And then you answered that question on the top of this call. Do I think it would lessen the racism? I don't know. I don't know if I've lived long enough to answer that. And you know, to be truthful, I don't know. I've lived long enough. I've probably seen a lot and read a lot, but I don't think I've lived enough to learn to answer that. But
But you older.
Listen, I feel like I'm an old soul. I can't, after I fractured my ankle, it's hard to do anything now. It is. I got to wear an ankle brace and everything now. But I think, listen, I'm telling you, I got it right here. When I get up, when I get up, I throw this on every time. But I think for us, I think if we've got to start unifying together on all fronts, whether it's education, whether it's politics, doesn't matter what it is. I think there needs to be a collective effort. It's one of those things where, you know, all right, this is what I'm going to tell you behind closed doors. We walk out of here, you know, we're a unit. We haven't approached anything like that, and I think if we started doing it, I think there'd be more respect for us as a people. But people know that they can divide and conquer, right? Like no matter what you say, that's my boy. That's why I don't care what you say to me. It is what it is. And so I think if I don't know if it takes away the racism, but I think we can start having more credibility for what we do and what we want to do. Because I think, you know, you're right. It is the youth. And I think there are times where I think everybody for the support they've given me at one way or another. I'm not who I am if it weren't for a lot of people. But I think how many other young Black men and Black women can say the same thing. So if they can't, that means we're missing the mark somewhere. So I think that we have to, you know, forcefully engage ourselves with more young folk. I think that, you know, Mr. Jennings makes up a great point what he does with the college tour. We need to invest in that. I think if he's sending 20, 25, 30 kids on a college tour, I think it shouldn't be an issue.
And Carl, you do a great job too.
Shouldn't be an issue for you to raise money from the Black and brown community. So I don't know what that looks like now. I know I plan on supporting moving forward. But I think if we had more young people say, you know what, out of the year, I'm going to donate $250 to a college tour. If we had 10 young people to do that, I think you start to see that pendulum shift. Like, okay, there's more respect and there's more credibility to, you know, reinforcing what we need to do in our community. So, yeah, I really think it starts with education. I think, and then lastly, it starts with support. Because I'll say this and then I'm done. The one thing that bothered me a lot in the draft was all the negative stories about, they came from a single parent mom or dad was that. That was the big thing that bothered me. But you know what? Out of that, they did not talk about the plethora of success stories.
Exactly.
And folks have come or support systems, right? I mean, Mr. Jennings has come. Well, you've been in prep school, you've been in my college, right? So you talk about support. You know that you talk about a long runway. So we still need to be able to talk about in ways we can still support young Black men and Black boys, and because it's needed, especially after this is going to be needed, because the mental health or the mental strain that it's going to take on parents is unimaginable through every pillar, right? Housing, and the job market, and politics, and education. So we need to be able to support our young folks now more than ever, particularly during COVID.
But before I let you guys go, I wanted to tell you a short little story. When I came to Long Branch and I taught, substituted in the Long Branch school system, and they put me in the math department. And, you know, I love math. So I'm saying, how am I going to get these kids to learn some algebra and some geometry? You know what I did? You know what the kids love to do? The kids love to fight. So you know what I told them? I said, when you do that algebra problem, You know, when they said what you do on the other side, you got to do on the other side. I said, if you kick butt on that side, you better make sure you kick butt on the other side. Long before the grades went from F's and D's up to C's and B's. And also, on this last thing, you know how we as parents, you know, we're educated now and we're able to help our kids. And I'll never forget, my daughter was the only student taking computer science courses at Neptune High School. She was the only black. She was the only woman and the only black. And of course, I had my master's in computer science. So she'd come home, Dad, I got this problem. Can you show me blah, blah, blah? I said, no problem. We're going to handle this problem tonight. All of a sudden, you know, she got 1 C on the test. I looked at that. I said, no way. I said, something got to change. So all of a sudden, we went from C's and now it's straight A's. The teacher said to her, you must be letting your father must be helping you. Now, what else am I supposed to do? Is she supposed to go get a tutorer? Put out money? What's the tutoring? And I was going to show her. So she went from being that C student to the smartest student in that class. That teacher didn't like it, but he had to live with it. But I want to thank everybody tonight to come out and talk about, you know, the virus and what we can do as a community to help, you know, change things. And hopefully we can continue this discussion on later dates. And I definitely, hopefully you'll come back.
Well, thank you for having me.
Mark, nice meeting you, brother.
I say, gentlemen, if you ever need somebody to come talk about law school or the college admissions process in New Jersey, let me know. I recruit. I will be happy to come up and do a presentation for you. So get my information off of Keith, and I'm happy to come in and do anything I can to help you guys.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Look, we can't even get back in the weight room anymore.
You gotta do it at home, Keith. Come on, man. You gotta do it at home, bro.
We gotta try to do the push-ups and everything at home.
200 push-ups a day. Start there.
That's all right, but you got some muscles underneath here.
There's enough training programs, physical fitness programs on TV you can get.
Yeah, that's true.
At this point, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's got 30-day free trial.
You guys have a blessed evening, and now I'm going to hit the kitchen and start cooking.
All right, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
All right. And I'm still on here, Chanel.
Leave studio?
Leave. No.
You don't see that?
No.
Do you see at the top and broadcast?
Leave. No. I don't know. I'm just going to leave.
No, you can't.
And I'm going to turn the camera.
Leave this one.
Right, but I'm put the camera down so that when you can come turn it off. Just facing the keyboard, right? Just don't.
Leave broadcast. It says leave broadcast. And leave studio.
I don't see it, Chanel. Oh, down here.